Well, hello everyone. Me and my team today will be presenting our procedural manual that we developed to address crisis on college campuses. So just to be very brief on our background, obviously mental health is a prominent problem in our modern society in that it's not really getting better. And on college campuses, there is very high rates of overall just depression, anxiety, because it's a time of transition. So while that is already there, just imagine what happens during times of crisis. Obviously, it's going to get worse, which shows the need to be prepared for crisis. And so my team and we devised a holistic approach to address crisis counseling on college campuses to address both traditional and non-traditional students of any gender, sex, race, etc. So this is a trauma-oriented crisis manual. My response team, we have post-degree certification in mindfulness, EBT, and first aid training. And additionally, if you need any definitions for anything in our manual that might not be 100% familiar in terms of crisis or psychological first aid, do check out our definition section just to get a very brief idea. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kellen. That way she can introduce her section on scopes of the counselor's role.
Okay, so the scope of the counselor's role is going to be different because every crisis is different and requires a unique response. Counselors will always refer to the most senior member of staff for instructions, and there will usually also be appointed members of other organizations who may provide instructions as well. Any updates on information, especially if they are going to be shared with crisis survivors, should first come through these two parties or another authorized authority, such as first responders. Counselors will take on many responsibilities during an ongoing crisis, including collaborating with other community organizations, providing psychological first aid, contacting emergency services when necessary, guaranteeing that crisis survivors are safe and well taken care of, taking direction to remain as effective as possible, attending to the basic needs of the crisis survivors, utilizing coping strategies to maintain their reactions, and providing referrals where it's necessary, whether that's to the community or to their own counseling clinic. So, when providing long term counseling services to crisis survivors, counselors will aid them in returning to their prior level of functioning. And now we're going to go to Jason for our training section.
All right. So training is extremely important when it comes to working with crisis counseling. Like Helen mentioned, all crises are very unique in how people respond to them. So it's really important to be well prepared when it comes to our counselors. So there's a couple different steps we like to take in our training program. And the first one is going to a crisis intervention training, which is a standalone class that focuses on effective strategies and practices used in crisis. Things like psychological first aid, professional development, post-trauma relief, and of course, continued education after the course. It's very important to stay up to date with everything that's going on since things are always changing. But once new counselors finish this class, they're going to be working with our more senior counselors who are dealing with crisis. They're going to shadow them and kind of follow behind to get a better understanding of what it's like to work in our specific area. And once they start to feel more comfortable, they can start to take more of a lead with the supervisor watching them until eventually they're able to take care of students by themselves and start feeling more comfortable with the work. Improvements when it comes to working with students are not going to be as heavily focused since not only are crises all unique, but when it comes to improvements, that usually comes with a lot more experience. And we're going to let the counselors gain that experience when working with us. But that's going to be all when it comes to training. So now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Rosie to talk about her next section.
So I would like to briefly just address the fact that we are missing one of our team members right now. So just for her brief sections on the purposes and also communication between team members, do check her video. That way you're not missing any parts of our manual. But to continue on with our sections today, I'm going to go over procedures for support. It's very important that during crises that counselors realize that time is not going to be there's not gonna be a lot of time. Time is of the essence. You need to get your counselor or your clients to a safe place where they can feel secure enough to process the trauma that they just went through. So it's important that the support team builds the rapport swiftly between clients. That way they can get them from being immobilized into returning into a pre-crisis like state of normality and function. Additionally, during crisis, obviously you're not going to be able to provide assessments like you would in traditional setting. And so it's very important that you both engage with um, nonverbal communications with like body language, but also just like if the client is verbal, the things that they're communicating to you. It's mostly just important to go by what the client needs in that current moment rather than any theological backgrounds that you might have in a traditional setting. So for us, we utilize the psychological first aid. It's just a baseline approach that's used in crises. It addresses the theological orientation of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it's a non-intrusive assessment that will allow counselors to prioritize their clients' physical needs and safety before focusing on their emotional stabilization. And it is important to remember that during a crisis, even though this I'm about to provide a step-by-step instruction, you're more likely to not follow these in order. You might go back and forth. There might not be any order, but just do keep this in mind as a general basis for when providing support for your clients. So you'll need to make sure that you attend to the students, observe any of their needs that they might need to promote well-being, understand them and provide support, take action on their behalf, make future plans for them so they can return to their pre-crisis state of normality, and then also obtain their commitment just to ensure that they're on the best track to get back to well-being. And I'm now about to return the mic to Kellen so she can go over to briefing.
Okay, so debriefing is an essential process after any crises. We're going to do it in two different ways. So there will be a general staff debriefing that the lead staff member is going to take charge of, and they will do a summary of the events, highlight the areas of success and the shortcomings that we experienced. And then afterwards, all of the staff members will be able to provide feedback as well. So they can talk about what they think went well, their own experience, what didn't work, and what could be done differently in the future, just so we're more effective in these crisis situations. Individual meetings will also take place with the lead staff member and each counselor just to get a more personalized check-in. So during these individualized meetings, the lead staff member is going to gain a more thorough understanding of the following areas: how the counselor felt about the crisis and its management, if the counselor has felt affected since they returned to work, and if the counselor needs any resources to ensure that they are well and functioning. So now Jason is going to close us off with program evaluation.
All right. When it comes to program evaluation, it's very important to make sure we're doing, just to make sure things are still valid, up to date, backed by research, they work. Of course, it's very important we want to be taking care of people in crisis as to the best of our abilities. So the first step when it comes to this is going to be annual reviews, which are going to be done in-house once a year, just to make sure that everybody's still following any kind of protocol, techniques, and ideas can be reviewed to make sure that things are still as effective as they need to be, and that our practices aren't causing any more harm. Secondly, it's imperative to interview all the counselors who are working with us just to make sure and understand what they think is working, what's not working. It's always important to see what the people actually in the field are talking about, getting their own experience since they have the most valuable data when it comes to the results of these strategies we're trying to implement. Thirdly, I think it's always important to get continued education. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but it really is important. So that way we can stay up to date with any new information coming out when it comes to new studies or techniques that could be helped when it comes to working with clients in crisis. But lastly, I think one of the most important things we can do is have semi-annual reviews. And that's going to be done by an outside third party to kind of make sure that everything we're doing is up to date, ethical, and that works well with the clients we're working with, because it's always good to get an unbiased opinion. But that's going to be everything from us. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope y'all have a great day and that you found this helpful. So again, thank you so much.